ברוכות הבאות, ladies. ברוכה הנמצא, ברוכות הנמצאות. It's so beautiful that we're gathering again after Pesach. We had a long break. Did you have a nice Chag?
Yes.
Yes, I think only you had a nice Chag. You too.
The rest.
Did everybody here have a nice Chag? Beautiful. I'm so happy to hear that. Today, you have an amazing bonus. You have a couple of bonuses because coming up in just a few days, in a couple of days, is the Hilulah, is the yahrzeit of the Tana HaEloki, Rabbi Meir Baal Hanes, Alav Shalom. And it is also Pesach Sheni, which we're going to talk about very soon. We're going to understand what that is. And so we've got this double bonus that we're gathering just a couple of days before the yahrzeit of Rabbi Meir and Pesach Sheni. And so we're going to talk a little bit about the life of Rabbi Meir, so you get an understanding of who he was. We're going to talk a little bit about Pesach Sheni and then a little bit about the Parshat. But before we do that, I brought you a little something. What happened to my bag? I'm sorry?
When's the Hilula?
Yud Daled Iyar.
When is that something? Tuesday night?
Tuesday night, Wednesday.
We're supposed to light a candle?
Yes, well, before you do that, look. I have here for you, I brought for every lady here, a little gift, cute gift. In this little package is a honey candy because I want everybody to have a sweet rest of the year. That's number one. Number two, you have a yahrzeit candle, a candle that lasts about 3 hours that you could light in honor of Rabbi Meir. And I figured if you hold on to it during this shiur, because we're talking about the life of Rabbi Meir, it's even more special that you use this candle. There's a little sefer. Each one of you is going to get a little sefer. Now, I'm randomly handing it out, and they're not all the same. So whatever Hashem decides you're getting, this one says, Amarti toda venoshati. I said thank you, and God created salvation for me. And there's a lot of them here. There's one on happiness. There's one on all kinds of hakarat hatov. And then on the back, I brought you guys a piece of matzah from my shmura matzah that was left over from Pesach, from the Belz Hasidim. So it's a very special matzah. I always have this matzah on Pesach, so it's a very special matzah. So we're going to start to give it out. The way it works, well, we'll tell you soon how it works. We also brought a special tefillah that we say for the yahrzeit of Rabbi Meir Baal Hanes. So before we begin, first of all, I want to dedicate this shiur to the refuah shlema of Sveta Chaya bat Mazal, Ruth bat Roza, Yosef ben Daoud, Hershel Chaim ben Rivka, Moshe ben Miriam, Moshe Yosef ben Yittel, and for the refuat hanefesh of Dov Shlomo ben Miriam. HaKadosh Baruch Hu yivarech otam וישלח להם רפואה שלמה מן השמיים, רפואת הנפש ורפואת הגוף במהרה. במהרה. Rabbi Meir Baal Hanes, Alav Shalom, was known as the master of miracles. He was one of the greatest of Tanaim who lived during the generation following the destruction of the second Bet HaMikdash. He lived during the times of Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel, Alav Shalom, was a big tzaddik, and his son, meaning Rabbi Shimon's son, the great Rabbi Yehuda HaNasi. And these Rabbanim gathered the teachings of all the Chachamim, including Rabbi Meir's teaching, and then they arranged them into 6 volumes that we know today as the Mishnah. That's how the Mishnah came to be. Now, Rabbi Meir's real name, which I personally have an affinity to, is called Nehorai. His real name was Nehorai. Nehorai is an Aramaic word for illumination. And the name Meir, which means to illuminate, was given to him because he enlightened the eyes of Talmidei Chachamim through his Torah study. Now, according to the Gemara, Rabbi Meir's father was a descendant of the Roman Emperor Nero, who ruled during the time of Churban Bet HaMikdash. Now, Nero was the general of the army, and he did not want to destroy the Bet HaMikdash. He was destined to destroy it by Hashem, and he ran away, even though he knew that his mission came from Shamayim, but he wouldn't dare touch the Bet HaMikdash. So he ran away. He ran away. And the Gemara tells us that Nero, the Roman general, he converted to Yahadut. And from him descended this great Tana Rabbi Meir. Could you imagine? Could you imagine this? So Rabbi Meir was first a Talmid of Elisha ben Abuya, alav shalom, and later he became the student of Rabbi Akiva, alav shalom. Now, as we know, 24,000 Talmidim of Rabbi Akiva died in a terrible plague during the first 33 days of the Omer. And only 5 Talmidim out of the 24,000 survived. One of them was Rabbi Meir Baal Hanes. The other 4, now get a load of these names. The other 4, the Chavrutot of Rabbi Meir were Rabbi Yehuda ben Eli, big Tana. Rabbi Elazar ben Shamua, big Tana. Rabbi Yossi ben Chalafta, these are all names you see in the Pirkei Avot. And Rabbi Shimon bar Yochai, could you imagine? Rabbi Shimon bar Yochai and Rabbi Meir Baal Hanes were Chavrutot, and who's their rabbi? Rabbi Akiva. Could you imagine the level of Rabbi Akiva, of Rabbi Shimon, and Rabbi Meir are his students? So, Rabbi Meir was married to a woman named Bruria. She's one of the few women that are actually cited in the Gemara. She's spoken about in the Gemara. And she was the daughter of the great Rabbi Hanina ben Tradion alav shalom, who was one of the Asara Harugei Malchut, one of the 10 martyrs. And she was known for her tzidkut, her strength, and her amazing wisdom. As a matter of fact, Chachamim tell us that the rabbis of that generation would ask her for advice before they would make their final verdict on any halakha or any judgment. She would sit with them in judgment, and they would ask her, Boya, what do you think? And she would say, I think A, B, C. Bruria said A, B, C. Go according to Bruria. Can you imagine? Now, where did the term Baal Hanes come from? It came from the following story. I know ladies like stories, so I have a lot of stories here for you today. Rabbi Meir and his wife, Bruria, were wanted by the Roman government because they taught Torah publicly. In those days, you weren't allowed to teach Torah publicly, and as punishment, they took away Bruria's sister, and they sent her away to in a nice word, brothel. You know what a brothel is? A harem. Okay. They sent her to a place where naughty girls reside. B'kitzur, now, Rabbi Meir took a bag of gold coins and he went to this place and he disguised himself as a Roman horseman. And he offered the money as a bribe to one of the guards. And the guard says, well, when my supervisor comes, he's going to notice that one of the women is missing and then he's going to kill me. So Rabbi Meir says, it's not a problem. Take half of the money for yourself and the other half, use it to bribe the supervisor. So the guard says, yeah, but what happens when the money runs out and then the supervisor comes? Then what am I going to do? So Rabbi Meir said, say the words, Eloha de Rabbi Meir aneni. God of Rabbi Meir, answer me, and you're going to be saved. So the guard says, oh, well, what guarantee could you give me that this is really going to work? So Rabbi Meir pointed to a pack of man-eating dogs. And he said, you see those vicious man-eating dogs? He says, I'm going to go over to them and you're going to see for yourself. So Rabbi Meir walks over to the dogs and he kind of bothered them a little bit, and they started running towards him. They wanted to tear him apart. And Rabbi Meir cried out, Eloha de Rabbi Meir aneni. Ooh. The dogs stopped in their track, turned around and ran away. So the guard was convinced and the girl was saved. When the supervisor came and noticed the girl was missing, he sentenced this guard to death by hanging. Now, as the guard hung there by his neck from the rope that was tied around his neck, he remembered this, and he started to yell out, Eloka de Rabbi Meir aneni. The Gemara tells us the rope tore, and this guard managed to run away. From then on, a minhag was created that any time a Jew is faced with a crisis, he gives a little tzedakah. Doesn't have to be a lot. It could be a quarter, a dollar, whatever it is. And he gives it le'ilui nishmat Rabbi Meir Baal Hanes. And he says the words, Eloka de Rabbi Meir aneni. And if he's worthy, he's saved from that crisis.
It's written in here? Is in here the words?
No, but I'm going to write it out for you. Don't worry. Now, there are some opinions as to where Rabbi Meir is really buried. Some say that even though he died outside of Eretz Yisrael, he was brought over to Tveria, which is the city where his mentor Rabbi Akiva is buried. That's one opinion. Some say that as a result of his brokenheartedness, because he saw so much tragedy, especially where he witnessed the cruel manner in which the Romans murdered his mentor and his teacher, Rabbi Akiva, who was also one of the Asara Hogei Malchut, and also his father-in-law, the great Tana, Rabbi Hanina ben Tardion. And being that he went through so much in his life, some opinions hold that he left Eretz Yisrael and he settled on the coast of Turkey. And according to that opinion, that he settled on the coast of Turkey, we're told that his last words were the following. He said, "Bury me by the seashore, because the waters that brush the coast of this land are the waters that brush Eretz Yisrael, which is Kadosh. And those who are attached to Kedusha are themselves Kedoshim." But anyway, so his yahrzeit, which is the 14th of Iyar, also happens to coincide with Pesach Sheni. Pesach Sheni is also Yud Daled Iyar. Now, Pesach Sheni, ladies, is known as the Chag of second chances. Why? A year after Yetziat Mitzrayim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu instructed Bnei Israel to bring the Korban Pesach on the afternoon of the 14th of Nisan, and to eat it that evening, roasted over the fire, together with the matzah and bitter herbs, just like they did the previous year, right before they left Mitzrayim. Now the Torah Kedosha informs us that there were certain people who became ritually impure either through coming in contact with a dead body or being a metzorah, and then they weren't able to prepare the Korban Pesach on that day, because if you're ritually impure, you're not allowed. So they came to Moshe Rabbeinu and to Aaron Cohen, and they said, why should we be deprived and not be able to present God's offering in its time together with the rest of Klal Yisrael? So because they were so sincere in their request, HaKadosh Baruch Hu established the 14th of Iyar, which is a month later, as a Pesach Sheni, a second Pesach for anyone who was unable to bring the Korban in the previous month on the 14th of Nisan. So the 14th of Iyar, ladies, represents the second chance that's achieved through the power of tshuva. Pesach Sheni means it's never too late, and nobody should ever consider themselves a lost case. And therefore it's customary to celebrate this day by eating matzah, And you don't say any tachanun prayers on that day, no sad prayers. So that being said, ladies, we are gathered here tonight, close to the Tzaddik's yahrzeit, not only celebrating his greatness, but we have a double bonus, like I said. We're also celebrating Pesach Sheni and beginning our summer session with second chances. And interestingly, it was Rabbi Meir Baal HaNes who said the words, "Great is the power of tshuva, for it not only saves the person himself, but it also can be instrumental in saving the entire world when you do tshuva." Can you imagine? That being said, we have a special tefillah over here that we're going to say in honor of Rabbi Meir Baal HaNes, where you can ask for anything. And since the minhag is that you give a little tzedakah, even $1, a quarter, whatever it is, a dime, a nickel, just put it in the envelope. When you're done, leave it by the table. This is for Rabbi Meir. And then we're going to say the tefillah so that we can say what the tefillah says, that we gave a little tzedakah for Rabbi Meir. At a certain point in the tefillah, I am going to say to you, name. When I say to you, name, you are going to say your own name. You have in mind your own name. And then, at another point, I'm going to say to you, have in mind. When I say the words have in mind, it means you now should ask for something special for yourselves. In honor, for the yahrzeit of Rabbi Meir, ask him to be the melitz yosher, to be the mediator for you in the heavens. Okay?
Yes.
Okay. Chaneni Adonai, ki elecha ekra kol hayom. עזרנו אלוהי ישענו על דבר כבוד שמך והצילנו וכפר על חטאותינו למען שמך. עשה למען שמך, עשה למען ימינך, עשה למען תורתך, עשה למען קדושתך. יהיו לרצון אמרי פי והגיון ליבי לפניך, אדוני צורי וגואלי. אלוהה דרבי מאיר ענני. אלוהה דרבי מאיר ענני. אלוהה דרבי מאיר ענני. הרינו נותנים לצדקה עבור ארגון אוהל שרה, לשם נשמת אבותינו, אבות העולם, אברהם, יצחק ויעקב, ולשם נשמת התנא האלוקי רבי מאיר בעל הנס. יהי רצון מלפניך, אדוני אלוהינו ואלוהי אבותינו, כשם ששמעת את תפילתם ועשית עמהם ניסים ונפלאות גלויים ונסתרים, וכשם ששמעת את תפילת עבדיך מאיר ועשית עמו ניסים ונפלאות, כן תהא נא שעת רחמים ועת רצון מלפניך לעשות עמדי name. ניסים ונפלאות גלויים ונסתרים, ותשמע תפילת עבדיך ביום הזה. ask. ותיתן אותי ואת כל בני ביתי וכל עמך בית ישראל בכל מקום שהם לטובה ולברכה, לישועה ולנחמה, לחן ולחסד ולרחמים, ותשלח רפואה שלמה לחולי עמך ישראל, ותזמין לנו פרנסתנו מידך המלאה, הפתוחה, הקדושה והרחבה, ותצילנו מכל צרה וצוקה, ותוציאנו מאפלה לאורה, וימלא כל משאלות ליבנו לטובה מעתה ועד עולם, אמן, כן יהי רצון.
Amen.
Yes.
It's just like 3 minutes. I wanted to say something about myself.
Sure.
If it will be difficult, I will ask to tell in Hebrew and maybe some.
You want to come here maybe so everyone sees you? No, don't be embarrassed. What's your name?
Leah.
Leah?
Miriam.
Leah Bat Miriam. Okay, beautiful. What do you want to share, Leah Bat Miriam?
So this is a story that happened with me. It was in 2005. Yeah.
2005?
Before, yeah.
Okay.
Before my daughter was engaged, like 2 months before. I lived in Israel, in Yerushalayim, and I worked and buried in one pneumonia
Pneumonia is like a dormitory,
with the girls. Ramat Shlomo, it's super crazy place.
a super Haredi place.
Yes, and it was Shabbat after light candle. All girls was outside. It's like a dorm with 2 floors, and it was Shabbos already. I fell from 2nd floor. נפלתי מקומה שנייה, ואני לא זוכרת כלום after
She
that.
doesn't remember anything after that.
So when I opened my eyes, it was like dark, and I understand that I can't see faces, but I know that faces around me, and I can't even understand who I am. So after that people tell me that girls find me in the floor without feeling, without nothing, and when they try, my 10 girls that lived in that dorm, that pneumonia, they try to
Revive you.
yes, revive me, and one of the girls tell other, she said, our Leichka, it's my name Leah, so they, like in tradition, they say not Leah, but Leichka. She said, Eloka de Rabbi Meir Aneni, 3 times. And she didn't understand what is it. She just brings
saying
the same words. What is it, she asked. And nobody knows. I can't remember this. It was many funny things. Like one of them, it was Shabbat, so they bring somebody, a doctor from Meuchedet, and straight away when he saw me, he said to the hospital, you can't make nothing. You have to call first aid.
Atzala.
Atzala, you have to, because she's not in a
Good situation.
So they bring me to a hospital, Atzala took me to the hospital, and I slept there night. In the morning, I repeat this 3 times by myself. Eloka de Rabbi Meir Aneni. I understand who I am, even I knew name of Parshat V. So when people, a doctor started to ask me who I am, my age, what is the day today, so I said, I'm not remember day, but I know that Parshat V is, I just say, it's amazing because they scanned my brain. It was like nothing happening, and before that they scanned like in the middle of night. They said that I have to be without moved like weeks. So
she really should be paralyzed for weeks, right?
Yeah, yes. So next day I said, I ready to go home. But it's so far from place where we was. I didn't want to go to take a car or taxi in Shabbos, so I was waiting until it will be done, until Zman. And one of girls that told us this story about my words, she was waiting outside for me after. And she asked me one more time, do you know what you said? What is it? And I said, I remember somebody told me, but I don't know who told me these words. Even now, להיות אמיתי,
To be very honest with you,
I don't remember. I learned a lot, but I don't know how I knew these words by the...
she didn't know how these words came to her mouth.
Just as a story.
So you believe that a miracle was made for you, that the tzaddik intervened on your behalf.
I believe it was all my heart.
So tonight is a special night for you.
Yes.
Wow.
Thank you so much.
Wow, thank you so much for sharing with us. We say these words, by the way, for those Sfaradim that daven on Yom Kippurim. What do we say? We say these words. We say, Anenu, right? Elokei darbi meir, Anenu, right? And if you go to another shul, you say, Anenu, Elokei darbi meir, Anenu, right? But you say these words. You say these words on Yom Kippurim because we gotta use the zchut of all the tzaddikim to help us get out of this situation. Anyway, amazing story, amazing story. All right, are we ready to continue? In this week's parasha, ladies, we find one of the most important mitzvot. It says, "Velo techalelu et shem kodshi." HaKadosh Baruch Hu tells us we're not allowed to desecrate His name. This is known as a Chilul Hashem. And then the end of the pasuk says, "V'nikdashti betoch bnei Israel," and you must sanctify my name among the Jewish people. Now that's strange. The pasuk deals with with two subjects that are of opposite ends of the spectrum. The beginning of the pasuk tells us not to make a Chilul Hashem. That's the extreme left. Don't make a Chilul Hashem because that's the worst sin. And then the Torah Kedosha tells us, wait a second, you got to make a Kiddush Hashem. That's the extreme right. So in the same pasuk, we find two opposite extremes. How do you bring us from one side to the other side in one pasuk? It's too extreme. Don't make a Chilul Hashem, make a Kiddush Hashem. How do you do that? So I saw a beautiful explanation. This pasuk is telling us, while you are in the process of making a Kiddush Hashem, you're doing a mitzvah, while you're getting close to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, in the midst of your Kiddush Hashem, don't make a Chilul Hashem. The Torah is saying, don't make a Chilul Hashem. When? V'nikdashti betoch bnei Israel. When you're trying to make a Kiddush Hashem, don't make a Chilul Hashem. You know, unfortunately, it happens many times that we have good intentions and we want to grow spiritually and we want to elevate ourselves in order to come close to the Ribono Shel Olam. But sometimes that excitement doesn't allow us to think about the way in which we're actually doing the mitzvah, and as a result, people around us could become offended by our actions and they begin to see us as being very inconsiderate. For example, you might be running to listen to a shiur. And in the excitement, you run into the Bet Midrash and you accidentally push your way through the crowd of people and you step on everybody's toes. In your mind, it may be very justified. But that person who was just pushed and stepped on walks away and says, this is Torah. What's all the learning worth if people don't have derech eretz? Therefore, the Torah warns us, don't make a Chilul Hashem at the same time that you're trying to make a Kiddush Hashem. As excited as you are to serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu, you have to consider the ramifications of your actions regarding the people in your life. I'm going to give you another example. There was a true story. There was a guy who davened in a shul that he wasn't used to davening in. He just happened to be there that morning. And in the middle of Shacharit, a goyish neighbor came into the shul and very nicely said, please, somebody's car is blocking my driveway and I need to take my wife to the doctor. Can you move the car? Now really, this guy, he doesn't even have to offer any explanations. It's his driveway. So the man whose car it was that parked there, he had his talit on, his tefillin on, and in a portrayal of absolute arrogance and foolishness, he tells this goyish neighbor, he says, it's my car. If you don't mind, I'm in the middle of praying, so as soon as I'm done, I'm going to move my car. What a chutzpah. This guy wants to make a Kiddush Hashem. I'm praying, I'm shuckling, I'm getting closer to Hashem. I need to pray. I gotta pray for my children, for my life, for my sustenance. My dear friend, in the middle of your Kiddush Hashem, you now just committed a Chilul Hashem. Why should we cause anybody to say, this is what Tefillah does to you? This is what Torah does to you? It turns you into a cold and inconsiderate person? Chachamim say, sure you have to daven, sure you have to become close to Hashem. You should strive to get stronger in your observance of mitzvot and reach high levels. But see to it that on the way up, you don't sin and end up making a Chilul Hashem. You know, they tell a story about Rav Chaim Sonnenfeld, alav shalom. In one of the shuls in Mea She'arim, there was a Sefer Torah that was stolen. Can you imagine somebody stealing a Sefer Torah? So the owner of the Sefer Torah went to the police to try and find out who the thief was. And after doing his own detective work, he found out that the Ganav, the thief, was unfortunately a fellow Jew. Now there was a decision to make. Should he report that Jew to the Turkish police? At that time, the Turkish ruled over Eretz Yisrael. So he decided to ask a She'elat Rav, and he went to Rav Chaim Sonnenfeld, who told him, look, I understand why you'd want to report this guy to the police, because he stole one Sefer Torah, and if he stole one, you could steal another one. And we definitely have to scare this man in order to protect our neighborhood shuls. He says, but let me think for a second, let me think. Tell me, what do you think this Jew is going to do with this Sefer Torah? He's probably going to sell it for money. And that Sefer Torah is going to end up in another shul and probably is going to be used more than it would be used here in Mea She'arim, because we have so many Sifrei Torah. So nothing is going to happen to this Sefer Torah. My concern is not the Sefer Torah. My concern is what's going to happen if we go to the Turkish police and word gets out on the street that a Jewish Haredi man stole a Sefer Torah. What are the Chilonim? What are the Arabs going to say about us? What's the Turkish police going to think about us? Even though the kavod of this Sefer Torah is going to remain intact, the reputation of the Jewish people is going to be tainted, and it's going to cause a tremendous Chilul Hashem. He says, but still, we have to think about what to do concerning this thief, because I'm worried that he should go around stealing Sifrei Torah. So now listen to the gadlut of Rav Sonnenfeld's answer to this problem. He says, go to this man and tell him the following. Say like this: we know it's you. We're on to you. And we're watching you. So you better be careful. That's it. And he says, and hopefully that's going to deter him from stealing another Sefer Torah, because he knows he's being watched. You see the reaction of Rav Sonnenfeld? I mean, while it's true that this man has to be punished, but he says not at any cost. P.S. When this Jew found out that they were onto him, he was so ashamed that within 1 week the Sefer Torah was already back in the Hechal. That's the kind of sensitivity that Chachamim had towards the Chilul Hashem. Now ladies, we are now amid a period of mourning. Who died? Who died? Who?
Students.
Which students? Yafeh. How many? 25. That's a lot of students. Rabbi Akiva's 24,000 Talmidim, they tragically perished during the days between Pesach and Lag BaOmer. There was a massive plague called askera. It's a form of asthma where they couldn't breathe properly. So Chachamim in the Gemara want to know what sin merited this kind of death. And the Gemara says, Al shelo nahagu kavod ze laze. They didn't afford respect to one another. They were lacking in the area of ben adam lechavero. So the question is like this. Let's assume that indeed there was a lack of kavod between the students. For that you die? Where in the Torah do we see that if you don't give kavod to your friends, it's punishable by death? Isn't death an extreme punishment for not giving respect to your friend? It's a little extreme. No? The Ben Ish Chai, alav shalom, and the Chafetz Chaim both gave the same answer. They say it wasn't just the fact they didn't give kavod to one another. That's besides the point. So what happened? What happened was, when people saw that they were lacking kavod for one another, that they were lacking true derech eretz for one another, when they didn't behave towards one another on the level that Talmidei Chachamim are supposed to treat each other, it caused the people on the streets to say, Zu Torah. This is Torah, this is learning. What good is sitting and learning in the Bet Midrash all day long if at the end of the day these students are fighting with each other, insulting each other, putting each other down? This is Torah, Zu Torah. So that behavior left a negative impression on people. It created a Chilul Hashem. And as a result of that kind of Chilul Hashem, which is a grave sin, the students had to pay a high price, because it's very difficult to fix a Chilul Hashem. And that's what's taught to us in this week's parasha. Ladies, we have to be the ambassadors of Torah. Be the ambassadors. Rabbanim have said that in today's generation, every religious Jew is considered like a rabbi and a Rabanit. What does that mean? How many Chilonim or Goyim, think of it this way, see a man with a kippah on his head and a beard, and they automatically assume he's what? Rabbi, kippah, beard, rabbi. Today, any Jew who's observing Torah has to consider himself an ambassador of Yahadut, because he's looked upon like a big authoritative figure in Yahadut. Why? Because people are watching you. There was a song when I was growing up, before I did the switcheroo. The MJ song was, I always feel like somebody's watching me. That's what's going on. Somebody's watching you. It's true. They're observing your actions. So you have to see to it that those people walk away saying, wow, religious Jews, wow, are they special. Wow, are they good. Wow, they're amazing. They're so honorable. They're so respectful. They're so modest. Look at them. Look how they dress. Look how they behave. Look how they talk. Look how they interact. Look at this Bat Melech. She's mamash a Bat Melech. ולא תחללו את שם קודשי ונקדשתי בתוך בני ישראל. Make an impression. Let me tell you a story about Rav Shimon Schwab, alav shalom. He lived during the Nazi era. The German officials took Rav Schwab to interrogate him, and they assumed that he made statements against Hitler, Yamach Shemo v'zichro, and they interrogated him for many, many hours, and then Baruch Hashem they let him go. But for the next few months, Rav Schwab went to sleep every night in his rabbinical clothing, and his family was wondering, well, what was this all about? And he said like this, he said, I know that the Germans are still watching me, and it's common by the Germans that if they investigate somebody, they could decide to come in the middle of the night and take that person and publicly hang him in order to make a mockery of him. Therefore, I'm concerned that if I'm going to go to sleep in my pajamas and the Germans are going to come to try to hang me in the public square, it's going to be a great Chilul Hashem, because people are going to look upon me and say, look at the Jewish rabbi in his pajamas. How he was hung in his pajamas. What a Chilul Hashem. P.S. When I argue with the missionaries, Sometimes I get a missionary and they start arguing with me. Don't argue with me, because I know Torah better than them. But when they argue with me, I tell them very simple. I say, look, you claim Yeshu was a god. Now, never mind the fact that he was human and he actually bled. But I'm just trying to imagine the scene, this God hanging on a cross in his pajamas. And only pajamas. And I don't really say the word pajamas, I'm just saying it to you. But what was he wearing? When you see pictures of him on the cross, what is he wearing? Yeah. He's bare and only a shroud. Tell me, that's honorable? This is how you see a God? Rav Schwab does not want to go to sleep because he's afraid the Germans are going to hang him with his pajamas. And you're telling me Yeshu doesn't mind being hung on the cross in his pajamas? This is a Hashem, this is a God. This is respectable, this is honorable. This is who you admire, this is who you praise, who you bow down to. A guy who's bare-chested with his pajamas. Zelokim? That's the image of God you have in your mind? Does that make sense? Does it? But going back to Rav Schwab, look at the sensitivity that the Gadol had for the kavod of Torah. That they shouldn't see him as a Chacham B'Yisrael dressed in an undignified manner. Even if he's going to his death. That's the kind of sensitivity that Chachamim had towards the Chilul Hashem. You with me?
Yes.
Now towards the end of the parasha, we read, ladies, a very dramatic story of the Megadef. What's a Megadef? A Megadef is somebody who committed a blasphemy against Hashem. Blasphemy means that a person came to, God forbid, curse God. And eventually the Megadef is punished by being stoned to death. The Torah informs us who this person was that came to curse Hashem. The Megadef in our parasha was the son of an Egyptian man, and his mother was a woman by the name of Shlomit bat Divri. This was the only case in 210 years of bondage in Egypt where we had an intermarriage of this kind, where we had a child that was born from an Egyptian father and a Jewish mother. First case in 210 years. Could you imagine? What was the story here? The backdrop of this story is quite interesting. We learned back in Sefer Shemot that when Moshe Rabbeinu went out and saw an Egyptian man beating up a Jew, he killed the Egyptian. Do you remember that story? Remember that story? What was the fight all about? Chachamim tell us that this Egyptian took Shlomit bat Divri by force, and he violated her. Shlomit was a married woman. And when her husband went to the field to work one day, the Egyptian came into her house and he did what he did. As a result of that incident, she conceived a child. That Egyptian wanted to cover it up and claimed the child wasn't his. So he went to the fields to find her husband, and he tried to encourage her husband to take the day off to go home to be with his wife in order to cover up the indiscretion. Shlomit's husband didn't know what this Egyptian was talking about. Like, what are you sending me home for? Well, he didn't want, and they started to fight, and an entire machloket came out. The Egyptian started to beat up on Shlomit's husband. Moshe Rabbeinu saw what was going on. He understood the whole story, and he kills the Egyptian. That person who came to curse God was the product of that union. The Egyptian and Shlomit. His mother was, Chachamim say, was not the most innocent of women. The Torah calls her Shlomit bat Divri, The word divri comes from the word dibur. Chachamim tell us she liked to talk to the wrong people. She was a little flirtatious. It says everybody she met, including a man, she would say shalom, 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 shlomit. All day she was just shalomim to everybody. She would talk more than she was supposed to, and to people that she wasn't supposed to, and that's what got her into trouble, because she was bat divri. That caused her to get into the incident that took place with the Egyptian. Now Rabbeinu Bachya alav hashalom tells us regarding this week's parasha that Shlomit's son also made a mistake with his speech. He was this megadef, this one who cursed Hashem. Chachamim tell us that a child usually takes on the characteristics of his mother in both the good and the not so good, ladies. And the explanation that they give us is that because the mother is the one who carries the child in her womb for 9 months, and therefore there's a very close connection. It's the mother who nurses the child, and therefore the child is going to take on many of her characteristics. Hence, because Shlomit's problem was in the area of what? Dibur, she passed down to her son this negative trait of negative speech. But of course he takes it a step further. But Chachamim say it started with his mother Shlomit bat Divri. Now watch what happened. He curses Hashem, and the sin, as explained by the Sefer HaChinuch, was the following. What was the sin? Speech is a gift from Hashem. As a matter of fact, speech is the one item that separates us from the animal kingdom. Even though the animal right activists want you to believe that animals talk, and they're like you, they're your brothers, they're your sisters, they're your sons and daughters. And even though the animals do communicate on their level, but it's not dibur on the level that humans were granted. Animals cannot control their communication, and that's a major difference. Because a dolphin can't make a conscious decision and say, you know what, I decided I'm not going to say what I was going to say to my fellow dolphin. The dog doesn't stand there deciding, oh, wait a second, should I bark? Should I not bark? You know what? I won't bark and scare this poor lady. A dog barks instinctively and automatically. So yes, animals do have an ability to communicate, but they don't have the ability to control it. Human beings were given the gift of speech, that it's within their control to speak or not to speak. And that's what separates us from the animal kingdom. And by the way, this is a great lesson in Shalom Bayit, to speak or not to speak. That's the question. So Borei Olam says, I gave you a gift. This is what makes you a human being. You're defined by the power of speech, and you took that gift and you cursed me. Imagine you give a gift to somebody, the gift of tshuva, for example. You help somebody find his way back to Hashem. And what does he do? He takes whatever psukim you taught him, and he tries to throw them back in your face to make you feel badly. In other words, he's hurting you with the gift that you bestowed upon him. Therefore, HaKadosh Baruch Hu says that the sins of speech are so bad because they're not like any other sin. In this case, with the speech, that's what defines you. This is what makes you who you are. This is what makes you a person, a human being. HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, I elevated you, and you took that matana tova, and you threw it back in my face and cursed me with it. This is intolerable. This is the sin of the megadef. It's interesting to note that following the story of the megadef who curses HaKadosh Baruch Hu, we're informed of a very odd law. A person that kills his friend's animal has to pay him. Meaning, you have to pay him the amount of money it would cost him to buy another animal. Wait a second. We just finished learning about the person who curses Hashem. And now you're bringing down a law about killing someone's animal? Ma kesher, what's the connection? The Chachamim answer that the problem with the megadef was that he forgot that he's a human being. He forgot the defining quality in which speech separates him from the animal world. He placed himself in the animal kingdom. Therefore, the Torah HaKdosha is informing the Megadef that he's making a serious mistake. Because if you kill an animal, you know what the halacha is? If you kill your friend's animal, you just have to pay money to replace it. That's all. We don't kill you for killing your friend's animal. But if you kill a human being, you might get a death sentence. So what does that teach you? That a human being is not an animal. A human being is on a much higher level. The Torah specifically mentions the law of killing your friend's animal right after the incident of the Megadef is to teach us a valuable lesson, which is don't degrade yourself. As a human being, you have a higher calling. You're on a higher level. You're not an animal. You're not even close to an animal. You're a human being. There's a story told about Rav Shlomo Zalman Auerbach, Chalav Shalom, and this story shows us what it means to be careful with our dibur, with our speech. One day he was sitting in his apartment with his wife and sister, and his sister asked him a question about a particular boy who was learning in his yeshiva. Rav Shlomo Zalman answered her, "The boy is a good boy. He comes from a good family. He's very nice." Okay. His sister got up and said, "I'm going." And Rav Shlomo asked her, "So where are you going?" And she said, "I'm going to go visit another sibling." And she left. After visiting with her sister, the other sister, she comes out, and Rav Shlomo Zalman, her brother, is standing outside the building. How long he was standing outside isn't told to us, but he's waiting outside for his sister to come out, and he says to her, "My dear sister, I assumed that you were asking me about this boy for your daughter because of a possible shidduch, so I couldn't say anything in front of my wife. But I want to tell you now that this boy is not for you. And I couldn't say it in front of my wife because she was sitting with us, and even though I'm permitted to tell you this information because it's leto'elet inyan, it only affects you, not her. Therefore my wife has no right to hear any negative information about that boy." Ladies, do you hear the sensitivity of a man who controls his tongue, his speech? He was willing to go out of his way to walk to his sister's house, wait for her to come out to tell her the information in person, as long as no one else is privy to the possibility of negative information, negative speech. That's how important dibur is, how careful we have to be with our lashon. And based on how careful we are in using our speech, that's the level of humanity that you're on. If you want to see who a person really is, you have to hear what comes out of his mouth. Shlomit bat Divri talked. She was flirtatious, but her excessive speech, the extra words she uttered which really weren't necessary or appropriate, that trait was passed down to her son, and he in turn took his mother's trait to a whole new level, degrading himself and behaving like somebody who belonged in the animal kingdom. So ladies, we have to be careful to use our speech correctly and to be representatives of the Malchut Shamayim. So let's take the lessons of the Parsha and try to be more careful to create Kiddushei Hashem without making Chilulei Hashem. Let's try and be careful to use our speech appropriately. And Be'ezrat Hashem, in the merit of the Tzaddik, Rabbi Meir Baal HaNes Alav Shalom, who was extremely careful with his lashon, we should be zeicha to see miracles and blessings from your kedusha, and very soon, Be'ezrat Hashem, greet the Mashiach Tzidkenu. Amen. Ken Yehi Ratzon.